So it was only like the beginning, but we're online now. So thanks a lot to GeoHussar. We already had like some streams some months ago. I already put it like the description, all the links. So please subscribe. He has a lot of good information, and both channels, also Instagram, TikTok, so you can find a lot of interesting things. And
Excellent.
the format of GeoHussar, it's very interesting because it's a lot of information with mixed images, news. I like him a lot. So from the last time that we had the chat, there is a lot of news. Today is like 4 hours ago. I don't know if you saw that there was breaking news about Peskov that finally said, not officially, because there is no official statement from the Russian Federation, but Peskov said for the first time that the state of Russian Federation is technically in war. But there is no official statement, but they de facto said that it's not a specially military operation, but it's a war state now. So it's a writer you can search, but I can show you. Let me try to put. Okay, it was like it's 8 hours ago. So, but it's let me put on screen just to share. So it was this one. Like this is Reuters, but I can show. Like Kremlin, in change of language, say Russia it's at war
due to the West's role in Ukraine.
Ukraine.
I mean, you know, that's just funny. Like, okay, so they've officially said that they're at war, you know, because of
no. It's not official because I already checked in Russian on Russian documents. The statements was not made. It was only like a declaration of Peskov, but Peskov is officially the spokesperson of the Kremlin. So also this narrative, it's a little bit interesting because came after the elections. So
interesting.
It could be connected also in some form of what is happening. I don't know if you had some news about the European Council that happened yesterday. It's still happening now. And the official news is that the European Union started to make initial funding to create a common defense. It's nothing because it's 1.5 billion, but I had an interview from today from like the CEO of Leonardo, but it's like the biggest military complex in Italy. And now I will show you, and we can discuss about it.
Sure.
About the situation of the weapon export. And the CEO of the Italian military complex said that for sure 1.5 billion is nothing to start, but however it's something that it's pushing to create a common defense. What I wanted to talk with you in the last 2 days, I made some let's say researches about data. So something that we can see together. Let me go fastly. So this data, it's like an extracted from CIPRI, but it's like an open source data about the weapon export. I will show you later, but this thing, it's like the compression and the decrease of the export of the Russian Federation of weapons from 2010 to 2023. And the amount of the decrease is huge. And the biggest reduction is about aircraft. So the interesting thing is this is like orders. And who is ordering weapons in 2023? It's only like 3 states in the world: India, Iran, Kyrgyzstan. But India technically, it's not an order because it's only a pre-order about cooperation in aircraft.
Got it.
It's a project that is technically in standby. The interesting thing it's what is happening in the market. We can see this is like the export, and we can see that USA it's out of scale because it's the biggest export
Sure.
player. But Russia now it's the sixth in the world. So from position second, now it's sixth, and it's after Germany, China, France, and Italy. And if you can see this graph, the red it's Russia. We can see that the reduction of the export it's huge.
Yeah.
I was talking with some friends in the last days, both Russians, Ukrainians, and they were saying, it's obviously because they have to concentrate the weapon production in full in the war.
Yes.
But the problem that I want to talk with you, it's this one. Economically, in a state that technically was based for goods export, like let's say minerals, raw materials, plus oil and gas and weapons, how can technically affect the economy the cut of revenues from oil and gas at let's say in an approx way? I make a calculation of minus 0.5 billion euro for day of the revenue of oil and gas, and weapon I don't know the amount of reduction, but in your opinion, what is the real, let's say, figure that is about the Russian economy now? Not connected to the GDP, because we already know that the GDP in Russia it's a little bit fake because
exactly. It's clearly massaged data, but it's like that in any authoritarian regime. They can't actually show transparent data because they have to keep, like making as as positive of a face as they can, because they have to convince their own people that, look, we make superior products, we have a better economy, look at our economic growth. And they also want to show well, I don't know about Russia, but still China, they still want to show that they have healthy soil for foreign direct investment. Now, it's interesting that I wasn't aware of the Russian weapons sale dropping that dramatically, but what this convinces me is that Russia is literally operating at a deficit, in my opinion, for the sheer fact that their oil revenue has dropped. I mean, they are selling more oil, but they are making less revenue. For one fact, they can't sell a lot of their oil on clear open market channels. They have to do a lot of black market stuff, which makes things extremely expensive. That an added level of secrecy that does lead to an increase in costs. So their energy sales are dropping, and now the fact that you're showing me that their arms sales have dropped so dramatically because they have to produce for their own economy means most likely what they're doing is that they are selling whatever they're selling to have immediate capital on hand to keep investing in the war. And even though they are selling at a loss, it is enough to keep them somewhat afloat. But that's not going to be forever. I don't even know how long that can really last the Russian people. Maybe another few months, another 6 months, another year. I don't have the exact facts and figures, but what I do know is that the Russian government is completely fine taking away their own people's quality of life while blaming the West for it. You know what I mean?
Let me show. I know. But let me show this. Okay.
Can I just say I want to show you. I want to tell you
okay.
one more thing, because this is actually because you mentioned something earlier too that just really brought this to my head. So Russia switched to a wartime economy, right? So a wartime economy is a much higher gas and oil consuming economy, because they have to power and manufacture all this extra military equipment. And a wartime economy isn't as flexible as, let's say, a peacetime economy compared to America, Russia, like Russia when things were peaceful. So now that Russia has made this huge shift that's very hard to get out of towards a war-based economy, they are even more dependent on their own oil for this to happen. And what's been going on this past month? Oil refineries have been attacked en masse. I know one figure, I wish I could pull up, one figure suggests that 10% of Russia's oil refinery capacity has been taken out of the game because of the Ukrainian drone attacks. And that is an even more crippling blow since, like I just said, they're in a wartime economy and they need that refined oil so much more. Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
Adding to what I showed to you in advance, this data, let's say, it's one interesting. I made the graph about this open database that it's called CPRI. It's very interesting. I will put it like in the description. And we can clearly see that the collapse of the weapon export started in 2013.
Yes.
Technically, just around the annexation of Crimea. And it's interesting because we have a huge growth of some player. Let's say the biggest that I was not expecting is Germany, because Germany now it's the second biggest weapon exporter in the world after US. China was expecting, but France, Italy, but also another player that we can see in smaller scale, it's also Israel. So it's probably the choices of some states, let's say third-party states, they have to choose the type of armament of weapons in the last 10 years changed a lot from the previous 20 years. Because also China, I think that and other countries like Turkey or whatever are more probably concentrating their research and development internally instead of buying from Russia.
Yes.
And about what is happening, let's say that you are more into like US politics. What do you think that could change, like the time between now and November to the actual situation in the war in Ukraine? Why I'm asking you this? Because I had the news of today that the Canadian government gave I think 1.5 billion in aid. And it was calculated that it's like CIA data, so I don't know if it's like proper or not, but to have 18 months of capacity of defense for the Ukrainians, they need 68 billion aid. So 1.5, it's about 1 month of, let's say, really defense. What, in your opinion, can change, let's say, from now to the presidential election, and what could change, or if something can change, if the winner will be Biden or Trump?
I think right now the GOP is trying to withhold funding for Ukraine for the sheer fact that they can't give Biden a win. Because if Ukraine manages to further delay Russia's advance or even make Russia retreat, that is a huge win for the Biden administration. And the Republicans will die before they let that happen. So they're trying to make this as difficult as they possibly can. And then the second reason, I think, this is just my theory, I don't have proof. Now this I can't prove. This is just my own conjecture, is that the military-industrial complex makes a great deal of money for funding war. And if the Ukraine war ends quickly and abruptly because of the vast amounts of aid given by the US, then the military-industrial complex loses a source of revenue. If, because for the past, before 6 months ago, we were getting these reports about how Russia is barely able to secure or hold any land and how Ukrainians keep making gains. So it gives people the mind that, okay, well, why do we need to keep funding for defense if the Ukrainians are doing so well. But if you have a GOP measure to block further funding for the Ukraine, it allows the Russians to gain a greater foothold. It takes away a lot of the Ukrainian strength. And now there comes a justification for more investment in the military-industrial complex to take place, because we have to now pay, we have to spend more money on weaponry to take away Russia's gains. So to me, it's like a stalemate. That's what I really think it is. That's one of my conjectures, is that the delay in funding just furthers more future funding for the military-industrial complex. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense also for me. I wanted to share also another graph later about like the weapon export. Let me try to put it.
What's the weapon export's name? Or weapon exports, sorry, weapon exports.
The weapon export, but including the US, because
Sure.
I want to try to, let's say, move on your like thesis. So if I can put also the US, we can see what I wanted to show you. So fastly. Okay. Putting also the US in scale, just to understand that I agree in what you're saying. Okay. We can see for sure that US, it's like out of the scale of the others, except we can see that in the export till 2013 there was a common, let's say, line between US and Russia in export. So US was first, Russia was second, but now the gap between two is huge.
Yes.
And you can see that there was like a huge peak in 2022, and it's going down in 2023 for sure, because like the A's are going down in the last year. But what I saw, especially from the European military complex, and this is something, a sensation that I've got, it's that the first part of aid that were given to Ukraine was not new materials. Let's say like
also from the 90s.
But also from Italy, for example, the artillery were not like new technology, also anti-air. But in the second part of the aid, it's interesting because, for example, the French gave the Caesars artillery system. Italy gave the SAMP-T, that was like the last anti-air defense. That was a new project that was Italy and France together. So it seems to me that the last year was more technically aid with new stuff made from the European Union, except instead of US. Also, the Abrams were not the new version. It was like something that was. And so what I'm thinking in a very cynic way, it's that also the military complex had a lot of gain and is having a lot of gain, maintaining the state of war instead of trying to win. I don't know if you.
I agree.
That's clear.
Because if Ukraine wins too quickly, then the game ends. Because when there is a war that we are taking part of, even though we are not directly fighting it, we get a great amount of opportunities, for weapon sales, other deals to take place, leverage against other neighboring politicians, against other neighboring countries. Of course, I'm sure, even though I can't prove it, money laundering opportunities. And then since Ukraine does seem pretty bent over a barrel, the United States will most likely gain a great deal of energy contracts, like, much to their advantage, because Ukraine does have a great deal of natural gas. And I think they even have some oil off of Crimea, like a good amount of oil. So the more that the Ukraine is put at this disadvantage, the more advantage that their main source of help, the United States, seems to gain. And I mean, it's a real tragic thing to think about, but that's the only thing that really makes sense, because we have such an overwhelming amount of weaponry and arsenal and resources to provide to Ukraine to allow them to easily trounce Russia, yet it hasn't happened. And the solutions are right with us in Congress through Biden's policies, yet it's being blocked by the GOP, which to me is so horrendously laughable, because up until 20 years ago, the group that was always suspicious of Russia was the GOP, and now they're Russia's best friend.
I had like one question from the public. It's like from a friend, like from Russia. So it's like, I'm sorry, I find it difficult to understand how anybody could look at the balance of power between Ukraine and Russia and think that Ukraine ever stood a chance when it comes down to existential war.
Can I answer that, or do you have?
Yeah, it's finished.
Okay.
You can.
First, that's what everyone thought the first week. Within the first week of the Russian invasion, me and most of the people I knew thought that Kyiv is going to fall, and this is going to resort to guerrilla warfare. Lo and behold, Russia has been there for over 2 years, and they have not been able to secure any major victory. No one thought that. So that person's question is innately wrong. The fact that were able to hold out against Russia in time for NATO aid to take place was a miracle in and of itself. And now that there is an opportunity for NATO infrastructure to bolster Ukraine, it eliminates it. It completely eliminated Russia's chances of a quick and secure victory. And remember, when Russia invaded on February 22nd of 2022, they didn't send a vanguard or some ragtag group. They sent their tier 1 tank units, and they lost. They couldn't win. And now, because Russia's only chance was a quick victory, and now, in my opinion, what Russia is enduring is a slow defeat.
Okay, like for example, like he said 20% of Ukraine is gone. But if I can add to this, because my position, it's because I have friends both sides, so
my wife is Russian.
Yeah. But so I can tell you the same, but let's say that to be more unclear. But my idea, it's like that it's a huge problematic to. It's more politics than people in this case.
Sure.
And the huge problem is that I was talking to a friend like today from Belarus. And she was talking with her friend, Ukrainian, and she asked to her Ukrainian friend, but you don't feel that it's insecure, like to return back, like to visit your family, blah blah. And she said, no, it's normal. Also, if there is like shelter, the shelter is okay. So the problem is that, in my opinion, it's that the Ukrainian society is already in a state that they can resist in the state of war because they got used to it.
Yes.
So and another thing, it's that let's say analyzing the state of the war from the beginning, because I think it's difficult to analyze it in a let's say logic way, because the war, it's not like logic, but on the ground. The percentage of gains that Russia got in the first 2 months, it's stabilized in the last 1 year and a half. There was no huge victories in terms of territories, for sure. Bakhmut at Vika, okay. But my problem, it's still about the capacity of Ukraine to regain the territories that Russia got.
Yeah.
Technically, this is why I'm still asking to both sides when I'm making an interview, what type of compromise can you agree? The problem, and this is what I'm asking also to you, the problem that I found is that both parts don't want still a compromise.
Well, Russia can easily compromise by leaving. like Russia just has to stop the invasion if they want to compromise. Like Donbass, like the Donbass does not belong to Russia. I mean, that's it's almost, to me, this compromise sounds exactly what started World War II, when the Sudetenland, in Czechoslovakia was considered, this is a native German population, we have to free them, and then Germany gets to absorb all of Czechoslovakia. And you have Chamberlain, the coward politician, and and the French saying, "Oh, look, we've secured liberty and we have secured peace, through this victorious, acquiescence to Germany, and now it's okay." So, and I think that's exactly that's exactly the strategy that seems to be being suggested in the submission of the Donbass to Russia and Crimea. You don't give land to a land-hungry bully. The only compromise that I think would make sense is if the United States launches a hypersonic missile in Ukraine that does not hit a Russian target, but just shows, here we go. And we have successfully tested our first successful hypersonic missile, called the ARRW. I think it's called the ATG 183 ARRW, and it is much more advanced than anything China or Russia has. Russia and China have they have ballistic hypersonic missiles, so they have a very easy trajectory to calculate because it arcs and then it lands. The United States had, the ARRW, that is a glide missile. So from what I understand, that missile is launched from a plane and then it glides and then it starts to hug the ground. And then we have another missile in test. I think it's called the ATACMS. That is a cruise missile that we're testing, which means it is a missile that can literally hug the elevation of the terrain, be imperceptible to radar, and move at hypersonic speeds. To me, that's a great way to bring Russia to the table.
Let me show you the last thing, because
Sure.
just to stay in the time that we wanted to stay.
Of course.
This is an interesting provocation that I will give to you, because
Thank you.
When we were talking about these, let's say, Russian territories, for example, Novorossiya was always Russia, blah, 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 whatever. So the main problem that I found is that in a declaration of Putin, I think that was in the beginning of his first mandate, said that the biggest catastrophe of the 20th centuries was the collapse of Soviet Union. Yes. Why? Not because of the collapse of Soviet Union itself, but because 20 million of Russians were left in the former SSSR republic. Okay. So the problem that I'm finding, for me, it's a good excuse, technically in foreign policy, to have a chance to create like hybrid wars, like Abkhazia, South Ossetia. I was in Georgia last summer, and it was interesting because there is a mixed feeling in Georgia. Like the government is technically pro-Russian, but I never found a place with more, let's say, Slavo-Ukraine or Ukrainian flags on the street like Georgia. Tbilisi, it's like completely covered in Ukrainian flags everywhere, blah, blah. So it's strange because government and, let's say, people, it's not connected.
But you understand why, though. You understand why they have to play that game.
No, but I explained to the people why. When I was like going with the bus from Tbilisi to Kutaisi, and they wanted to stop to Gori, that was like the hometown of Stalin. And if you check the map, South Ossetia, it's technically 1.5 hours from Tbilisi, and it's occupied. So let's say that if there is any chance to create, let's say, any type of not aligned government, you have still a presence of Russian forces that is 1.5 hours from the capital. It's the same. I was in Prednistrovia and Transnistria, Moldova in 2016. It's the same. It's like less than 1 hour from the capital. And the provocation is this one. that I wanted to share with you. This is a map, just to have a stream in the time that you said. This is a map of Italy before the Second World War. So, for the people that don't know the actual map, there is an extra part on the top right. This top right, it's all the cost of actual Croatia and Slovenia, and also Montenegro, Qatar, for example, Ragusa, but now it's Zadar. It was all Italy. Technically, in Italian, it's called Istrian Dalmatia. So think about that. If we say no, historic, because that part historically was Republic of Venice for 1,000 years.
Yes.
Not for 70 or 100.
Yeah.
So this is why inside Europe there is a lot of stories like this. Northern Romania was Hungary before the Second World War.
Sure.
So let's say, in your opinion, just to close this,
Sure.
what do you think that could be a good exit strategy for both parts? I know that it's like a very bad question, but long story short, what could be the, let's say, exit strategy that could end this mess, especially like for also not only for the people that it's involved, both parts, but also economically, because except for the military complex, the world economy, it's affected from this a lot.
I mean, the exit. See, I'm. I believe in keeping my anonymity, but I'll just say I'm Eastern European. My father is Eastern European. He grew up in a former communist country, and my wife is Russian. Their family escaped Russia. And my father insisted, even when I was like 9 years old, that I read about communism and that I read about Russian history. And I did a lot. And in my opinion, there is no successful compromise with Russia. The only successful compromise with Russia is that they lose, is that they are defeated, is that they are shown that they have no chance of winning whatsoever. And the only thing that Russia would be allowed to do in some way would be to make some kind of declaration to their own people that they, I don't know, eliminated the Nazi threat and that they reduced any chances of Russians being attacked within Ukraine or Russia being attacked at all, and that the Russian troops pull out of Ukraine. But that is the only compromise that I think could possibly be pulled out, is that Russia gets to save whatever face they possibly can. But then they still need a generation or two to repair their economy and their diplomatic status within the world.
Just to close, because I have like this, you cannot defeat Russia militarily from the public, let's say. But what I wanted to say to my friend Russia, like, is like we were talking about this, that we have a conflict between one nuclear power, let's say Russia, and Ukraine, that is not nuclear power. And every time that I'm listening this story, it's interesting because return to me one other story about the war of Russia. Let's say it was Soviet Union at that time. It was like the occupation of Afghanistan. Afghanistan was without nuclear weapons. And it was 10 years, and it was one of the let's say, economically reason also of the collapse of the Soviet Union.
Yep.
So this is why I'm thinking that also for the internal, let's say, political and economical stability of the Russian Federation, if it was a war of 1 month, it could be a huge success.
Yes.
But now converting like the economy to a war economy, and like to lose, I'm repeating, Italy and Germany. I mean, Italy and Germany were the two biggest, let's say, client for the Russian economy, and now we're importing zero. So, and China. Let me show you the last thing. China, that actually it's in like in deflection.
Oh, yes.
So they said that they were, let's say, increasing the quantity. Just to close, and then I will give you the final word for you. This is like the monthly Chinese imports of Russian crude oil via pipeline. We can see that from 2021 to 2023, it's still the same.
Yep.
Increased. It's increased by ship, but by pipeline it's impossible because there is no infrastructure. So in a long war,
Russia
I don't
loses.
see any chance. I don't see any chance that there is a good end for the internal economy. So
I agree. I think you're 100% right.
And so, just for the last thing, do you think? I repeat the question that I said in advance. Do you think that after the U.S. election, it could be a different strategy if win Trump or Biden, or because
Trump
what
wins,
I'm feeling, asking to you, it's that Trump is now saying something, but probably it's realizing the opposite when it will be elected. This is what my perception. What do you think?
That's a hope. It's a nice hope, but in my eyes, Trump has acquiesced so much to Russia. I mean, I don't know. I think, see, I have a personal bias against Trump, but I also have a personal bias against Obama as well, because both Trump and Obama should have given Ukraine the aid that Biden gave when Russia invaded Crimea. I think if Trump gets elected, I think that is going to be a huge boon for Russia, and I think we'll start to see a lot more bold actions in Ukraine from the Russians and a lack of American response. That's just my theory. But I think if Trump gets reelected, we're going to have a lot of our own problems. I think we're going to have I think we're going to see Trump purge the United States military of any kind of leadership that would go against him. And then if he does secure control of the military, I think he will start to purge Congress. So, I mean, Russia, I think America will have much worse problems than a more emboldened Russia if Trump gets reelected. That's what I think. That's what I think. I think we will witness the deterioration of the United States Constitution at a level that hasn't been seen since World War II or even the Civil War. That's what I think will happen to the United States if Trump gets reelected.
Okay, thank you so much. Wait a second. So I repeat to all the public, if you have any comments, just put down there, question, whatever, for the next stream we will try to repeat. And please subscribe. Please subscribe to GeoHussar, both TikTok and Instagram. So see you next time, and have a good day. Wait a sec.